I want to share with you a story that we heard during California's Reparations Task Force. It begins with a young woman named Donna, an excellent student growing up with her family in San Francisco's historically Black Fillmore neighborhood, a place where the culture was so strong that we still talk about it 75 years later in San Francisco. Donna's family is working, they're close with their neighbors, but the local government says their neighborhood is blighted and they all have to move. Even though there's 100 other cities in the Bay Area, most of them at this time do not allow Black families. They have redlining or sundown laws. There's lots of discrimination in the real estate industry. And frankly, their future neighbors could be a little hostile. So Donna's family moves across the water to an unincorporated community called Russell City. There's a pretty good music club there, and the population is diverse, but the roads are not paved. In fact, there aren't a lot of public services at all. A couple of years later, the city of Hayward wants to annex Russell City and turn it into an industrial park. Mysterious fires break out, and residents in Russell City are getting the message loud and clear that they need to move. Donna's family ends up in the last place where they're allowed to buy a home, East Oakland. Donna was an excellent student, but the schools in East Oakland are severely under-resourced. And having been uprooted twice, she's getting a little shaky. She barely graduates from high school. Meanwhile, in other neighborhoods around the Bay Area, local governments are building great, strong social infrastructure, schools and roads and parks, and property values are climbing through the roof. So when redlining ends, Donna's family is now unable to move. During the Reparations Task Force, this was not one person's story. It was a story told in different versions by thousands of different people in public comment. Many of them had moved to California in the first place because their ancestors were pushed off of land where they had built homes and communities and economies in the South. They had seen themselves erased from the landscape, sometimes multiple times, and they wanted their roots recognized and honored and restored. I think this story has a lot of relevance to places across the United States where we are now talking about reparations and what kind of forms that might take. I was once an excellent student too. Growing up in a tight and caring neighborhood, I got to live in the same house my whole life and go to a great public school. When I got to college, I felt like the world was my oyster. My parents were able to sell my childhood home and send me to Columbia University in New York, on the edge of and overlapping with Harlem. And maybe it's because I grew up in Lexington, Massachusetts. It's the birthplace of the American Revolution, and they reenact the battle every year in costume and then go eat a pancake breakfast. But I showed up in New York obsessed with this idea of freedom. Freedom is something you fight for, but also something that we create for and with each other. The freedom and strength that comes with living in a rooted and close-knit neighborhood where you get to belong. I was also obsessed with the idea that some of us inherit this freedom and breathe it as naturally as air, and other people have to struggle for it. I spent a lot of my time in college protesting police brutality in New York and volunteering to teach GED to adults who hadn't graduated from high school. I ended up volunteering with the Zapatista movement, a group of indigenous farmers in Mexico who were also being forced off of land that their ancestors had lived on for over 1,000 years. At that time, I couldn't imagine anything more important, and I still can't. And so on a mountaintop one day in Southeast Mexico, a question changed my life. One of the other Zapatista volunteers asked the rest of us, what are we going to do when we get back to the United States? We have learned so much here about solidarity and supporting people working for the freedom to live where they want to live and be who they want to be. How are we going to bring that ethos back with us when we go back to the United States? I decided to take my education and go into government. I thought I could influence decision makers to not just invest in under-resourced neighborhoods, but help the communities there to drive their own democracy and make their own decisions. For the last 20 years, I've worked for multiple governments in the Bay Area, in both low-income neighborhoods and high-income neighborhoods. I've attended a lot of public meetings, and no matter what the topic is, a lot of times what I'm hearing underneath it is land and reparations. Families that grew up in underinvested, redlined, overcriminalized neighborhoods deserve repair in the form of strong, healthy communities where they get to make decisions for themselves. Cash to individuals as a form of reparations is great. But local governments made mistakes that they need to fix. And we live in expensive places where most of the property is now white owned. So cash alone is not going to change that. It has to be accompanied by targeted investments in neighborhoods and social infrastructure that prioritize the descendants of people who were disinvested in for generations, so that they get to own and invest and take care of places and experience them as safe and welcoming. I've learned that our relationships with land and place is not just economic, but also social and spiritual, and that community investments that are reparative can help us all to reconnect and rebuild relationships. So you might be saying that, of course, we should all live in a strong community, but what does that actually look like? What does it sound like in the language of local government? So let me try to translate and break it down in a way that I might for one of my classes at Stanford University, where for the last 10 years, I've tried to teach super smart students like Donna that they too can help their communities determine their own destiny. There are lots of different strategies that make it easier for people to buy land, access land, and stay in place. Homeownership programs are a popular form of reparations, but there are also strategies that can create more widespread affordability in a neighborhood, like a rent cap or rent controls. Land trusts can purchase multiple buildings and return them to the descendants of harmed communities. Many Black neighborhoods have been overtaxed and under-resourced. This could justify property tax relief for descendants, or it could justify concentrated investment in those neighborhoods, especially in schools and wraparound supports for families, as well as housing. And because this is a story about all of us, we need to think about reparations as a relationship of accountability with local government and with those of us who were able to profit when other families were being held back. We should be minimizing the ability of larger landowners and institutional investors to buy up multiple properties in a neighborhood. This drives up the cost of housing and community investment, and it takes access away from those who deserve it most. Most institutional investors target Black neighborhoods and end up making profits for majority white shareholders, just perpetuating the inequality of white families receiving the vast majority of benefits from federal home loans, land grants, and local regulations. Finally, local governments need to review and repeal the decisions that they made historically that caused segregation. In some cases, local governments directly owe compensation or restitution for taking people's property. Looking forward, to prevent that from happening in the future, communities may want to create review boards that weigh in on planning and development and investment decisions in their neighborhoods. Through actions like these, we can build back accountability and build relationships with each other. I think that the push for reparations can give us the neighborhoods that we've always deserved. In this spirit, I want to pass on to you a question that I got once on a hillside in Mexico, and that I still hear when listening to Donna and others at public meetings. What are we going to do to honor people's roots and just let them be home?